Chapter 1: The Warrior's Creed. The Thyrillian Empire was born in fire. Long before their banners stretched across the stars, the Thyrillians knew only war. Their homeworld, Thorol Prime, was a planet of jagged mountains and violent storms, where fertile valleys were rare and life was a prize to be fought over. Tribes clashed endlessly, and only those who embraced strength survived. When they first lifted their eyes to the heavens and crafted ships to pierce the void, their ancient wars did not end, they expanded. The stars became new battlefields, and alien civilizations became new enemies to test their mettle against. The Thyrillian creed was simple: victory is survival, survival is honor. It shaped their entire society. Children were trained to fight before they could read. To age without scars was considered shameful. Their leaders were chosen not by wisdom or wealth, but by conquest. Those who commanded fleets and bent worlds to their will became emperors. The throne hall of the Thyrillian emperor burned with firelight. Massive braziers crackled at the edges of the chamber, their flames reflected in the polished obsidian floor. War banners hung from vaulted ceilings, each dyed in the blood-red sigil of the empire, a jagged blade splitting a star. Upon the high dais sat Emperor Karzul, scarred and broad-shouldered, his armor dented not from age but from campaigns. His eyes were yellow and sharp, predators' eyes that had looked upon 100 conquered worlds. Around him, generals in ceremonial cuirasses knelt in reverence, though none dared meet his gaze for long. Karzul raised a clawed hand, silencing the low murmurs. His voice was gravel, born from decades of command. Another cluster falls silent. The Othari will trouble us no longer. Their fleets shattered, their cities burned. Their name will be dust before the next cycle of moons. A ripple of laughter filled the chamber, low, guttural, cruel. One general rose, fist across his chest. "Emperor, our scouts push deeper into the rim. The next prey awaits, weaklings. They call themselves the Illyrians, explorers, not warriors. They map stars, they sing to them. Their ships carry no weapons worthy of the word." Karzul's lip curled into something between a sneer and a grin. "Explorers? Dreamers?" He spat the word like poison. "Then they are sheep waiting for the blade." The hall roared in approval. Another general, younger and eager, stepped forward. "Their pleas for aid travel far, my emperor. Already they beg the ancients at the core. Already they cry to the lesser races of the rim. All will ignore them, as always. None dare oppose the Thyrillian Empire." "None ever will," Karzul growled. He stood, the weight of his presence pressing the air from the chamber. "The galaxy fears strength, and strength is ours alone. Ready the fleets. Let the Illyrians learn what becomes of those who spread their wings too far." The generals struck their fists to their chests in unison, the clang of armor echoing through the chamber. Karzul's eyes narrowed to slits as he looked beyond them, as if peering through the walls to the stars themselves. His voice lowered, dangerous, like the growl of a storm yet to break. "And when their stars burn, when their voices are silenced, the rim will echo with one truth: the Thyrillian Empire does not ask, it takes." The hall thundered with approval. The banners swayed as if in answer. None of them noticed the faint tremor of unease in one of the scouts who knelt at the edge of the hall. That scout had heard rumors of another race, one not yet touched by Thyrillian blades. A scarred people at the very edge of the galaxy, a people called human. Chapter 2: The Council of Ancients. At the heart of the galaxy lay the Spire of Eternity, a colossal citadel built into the shell of a dead star. Its walls shimmered with living crystal. Its halls resonated with voices older than suns. Here, the Galactic Council convened, ancient beings who styled themselves as gods, arbiters of which civilizations rose to the stars and which were cast back into the dust. Within the council chamber, the air was heavy with violet mist, a side effect of the crystalline walls humming with power. Thrones of light and shadow surrounded a vast, circular table. Upon each throne sat an elder of unimaginable age. Their forms varied, some draped in living energy, others encased in shells of stone and fire, still others cloaked in veils of shadow. They had long since transcended flesh or hidden it away behind avatars. At the center, the High Arbiter, a being of shifting starlight, raised a hand. The mist stilled. "The matter of the Thyrillian expansion must be addressed," the Arbiter intoned. Its voice was a chorus of 1,000 whispers. "Reports confirm the Empire has consumed another 5 systems. Their brutality spreads unchecked along the rim. A low rumble answered. Elder Valor, whose form resembled a living obsidian colossus, leaned forward. They are warriors. They burn bright, but they will burn out. The rim has always been a cauldron of fire. Let it boil. Another voice, smoother, dripping with condescension, followed. Elder Saraith, wreathed in veils of liquid silver, chimed in. The rim is far. Its wars are irrelevant. As long as the Thrillians do not cross into council space, they may do as they please. Better they slaughter each other than trouble us. Murmurs of agreement rippled around the chamber, but one voice, thin and sharp as a blade, cut through. Elder Ithran, whose form flickered like torn parchment aflame, hissed. The Illyrians beg for aid. Their envoys arrive daily. They are explorers, not warriors. They offer tribute, loyalty. Shall we ignore them? Of course, Saraith said with disdain. They are not ready. Not ready, Valor repeated, his stone voice a grinding echo. Not tested by blood. Those who cannot fight for themselves do not deserve to ascend. The phrase hung in the air like law. The High Arbiter gave no expression, its light shifting faintly. Then it is decided. The Council shall not interfere. The Thrillian Empire will expand as it will. The Illyrians will be left to their fate. A silence followed, heavy and absolute, the fate of billions dismissed in a single breath. Yet in the quiet, another subject surfaced, one that stirred unease among even the most arrogant of elders. Elder Corin, a skeletal figure whose body was etched with constellations, spoke slowly. And what of the humans? The chamber stirred. Mist rippled like a storm. Humans, Saraith scoffed. Savages. They nearly destroyed their own world before crawling into the stars. Their survival is inconvenient. They advance too quickly, Corin pressed. Faster than most. Too fast. They learn war as though it were their birthright. They are fragile, Valor boomed, dismissive. A flickering spark. If they stray too far, we will extinguish them, as we have done before. The High Arbiter's light dimmed, contemplative. For now, they are irrelevant. Monitor them as always, but our attention remains with the Thrillian frontier. Let the rim consume itself. And with that, the Council's judgment was sealed. The Illyrians would be abandoned. The Thrillian Empire would continue its bloody march. Humanity would remain caged, its potential watched, but never nurtured. The ancients congratulated themselves on their wisdom. None of them foresaw the silence that was coming. Chapter 3. The Backwater Species. The Illyrian envoy knelt upon the crystal floor of the council chamber, his long, slender hands trembling as he clutched the translation sphere to his chest. His people were explorers, not diplomats, but desperation had driven him across the stars. Honored ones, he began, his voice cracking as it echoed through the vast chamber. The Thrillian fleets burn our colonies. They strike without warning, without mercy. We are not a threat to them. We seek only to chart the stars, to learn. We beg you, intervene before we are erased. The High Arbiter's starlight form shimmered, but there was no warmth in its reply. You are not ready. The words struck harder than any blade. The envoy's throat tightened. Not ready? We offer tribute. We will submit to your guidance, your oversight. But please, I beg you, do not let our worlds burn, our children. Enough, rumbled Elder Valor. His voice was like mountains grinding together. If your people cannot fight for themselves, then they are not fit to endure. That is the way of the galaxy. The strong carve their place, the weak are forgotten. The envoy's eyes burned with tears, but he bowed his head. There was nothing more he could say. His voice, his pleas dissolved into silence as the council turned away. Guards of living crystal escorted him out of the chamber, his footsteps echoing in the hall of gods who would not raise a hand to save his kind. The doors closed behind him with a thunderous finality. The Illyrians had been abandoned. Far from the core, in a lonely spiral arm of the rim, another people carried scars older than any conquest. Humanity. On Earth, history was written in blood. Wars of tribe and nation had scarred continents. Industrial age slaughter had brought machines of death that churned battlefields into wastelands. Twice they had nearly ended themselves in global firestorms, pushing their fragile world to the brink. And yet, they had survived. Scar by scar, they had learned. Out of the ashes of near extinction, Earth had finally united, not out of idealism, but necessity. Starvation, ruin, and poison skies had forced humanity to look upward, into the void, and understand one brutal truth. Survival required more than peace. It required resilience. The first ships were crude, held together with steel plates and reactor cores barely safe enough to power them. Colonies began as desperate experiments, fragile outposts on barren rocks. Many failed, but those that endured bred a new kind of human, tough, pragmatic, unwilling to yield. By the time the Council's observers turned their gaze back to them, humans had not only clawed their way into space, they had thrived there. Fleets of corvettes patrolled colony routes, orbital shipyards hummed above Mars and Titan. Resource wars had erupted among the stars, but unlike Earth's past, this time they ended in unification under a single banner, the Unified Defense Force. The Council scoffed at the speed of it. Too fast, they whispered in their cloistered halls. They climb too quickly, they will stumble and fall. But the Council misunderstood. Humanity's progress was not born of peace. It was born of centuries staring into the abyss of their own destruction, of learning that hesitation meant extinction. When war came again, this time not against themselves, but from beyond the stars, humanity would be ready. For they had been preparing for it all along. The colonies on Mars, the red plains of Utopia Planitia, glowed with lights from vast domes. Inside, cities thrived where once there had been only dust and frozen soil. Children ran through corridors of steel and glass, their laughter echoing in places that had once been silent wastelands. Farmers tended hydroponic fields that climbed toward the domed ceilings, their crops feeding millions both on Mars and beyond. On Titan, Saturn's largest moon, methane seas glimmered under faint sunlight. Orbital refineries pulled hydrocarbons from the atmosphere, converting them into fuels that powered fleets across the system. Titan was harsh, cold, and hostile, but the settlers endured with stubborn pride. Everywhere humanity expanded, they carried a trait older than the stars. They refused to quit. The ships above Earth, the Terran orbital shipyards, stretched like a necklace of steel. Massive spines housed forges that hammered out armored plating, reactor cores, and weapon systems. The Unified Defense Force's ships were not elegant like those of the Council's client races, nor were they adorned with the ritual markings of the Thrillians. They were practical, ugly, and terrifyingly effective. Corvettes bristled with rail cannons fashioned from old mass drivers. Destroyers carried racks of missiles designed for planetary bombardment, now repurposed for void combat. Carriers, once civilian colony transports, had been converted into war hulks, housing swarms of strike craft flown by pilots with nerves of steel. Each vessel carried the names of Earth's long, bloody history: Hastings, Stalingrad, Gettysburg, Chosen, Hugh City. The names were reminders, not of glory, but of survival through suffering. The leaders in the command halls of the Unified Defense Force, Admiral Sheridan Grant, stood over a holographic map of the solar system. His uniform was simple, his hair gray at the temples, his face carved by years of conflict. "Our colonies expand faster than our fleets," he said to the gathered officers. "We must remain vigilant. The void is not empty, and when something finds us, it won't care that we're still new to these stars." General Amina Rojas, commander of the Marine detachments stationed across the colonies, leaned forward, her voice firm. "Then we'll remind them. Earth has bled for survival since its first dawn. Any who test us will learn the same lesson our ancestors did. We don't stop. Not ever." The chamber murmured in agreement. For all their differences, soldiers, engineers, politicians, they shared a single conviction: humanity's survival would not be left to chance. The spirit. In every settlement, from Luna's sprawling megacities to mining towns carved into asteroids, the same spirit burned. Humanity had known the brink of extinction and chosen to endure. They carried their scars with pride, as warnings to themselves and as promises to their children. The Council saw fragility. The truth was something far more dangerous. Humanity had been forged in the crucible of war and desperation. And unlike the Thrillian warriors, they did not fight for conquest or for honor. They fought because they knew what it meant to lose everything. And that made them a threat the galaxy could not yet comprehend. Chapter 4. The Illyrian explorers from the crystalline heights of the Council chamber, the ancients watched. Their cloaked probes drifted silently through Sol's system, recording images of shipyards rising in orbit, colonies taking root on barren moons, and fleets drilling in formation across the void. The data shimmered as holograms above the circular table of the Council. Rapid advancement, Elder Corin said, his skeletal frame etched with starlight. Too rapid. Crude, Elder Seraith countered, her voice like liquid silver. Steel and fire, not elegance. Their ships look like mining platforms with engines welded on. They lack refinement. They are unready. The High Arbiter's shifting light dimmed and brightened in slow rhythm. Their growth will be watched, nothing more. If they venture beyond their arm, we will break them back to dust. A ripple of agreement circled the chamber. Humanity, the backwater species, was dismissed. The Illyrians, far from the Council's arrogance, the Illyrians voyaged among the stars. Unlike warriors or conquerors, they were dreamers, slender, long-limbed beings with eyes like polished obsidian, built for exploration and endurance. Their ships were graceful, long silver spines gliding through space, carrying libraries of star charts and archives of knowledge. They had mapped hundreds of systems but carried only defensive technology, shields to ward off cosmic radiation, drones to repel debris. Their weapons were an afterthought. When the Thrillians came, it was not a war, it was slaughter. The first colony fell in hours. Orbital stations shattered under rail fire, cities scoured from the surface by plasma bombardments. The Thrillians took prisoners, chains clinking against cold armor, and left the rest to burn. The call for aid from their capital world, the Illyrians sent out a desperate signal. It surged across the void, carried on every frequency they could broadcast. We are the Illyrians. We seek aid against the Thrillian Empire. Our colonies burn, our fleets fail. We cannot hold. To those with strength, to those with honor, we beg for help. We will give all we have. Do not let us vanish. The plea spread. It reached the Valorians, who shut their gates and declared neutrality. It reached the Supremus enclaves, who sent back silence. It reached the Council, who dismissed it as unready. Every race with the power to oppose the Thrillians looked away, except humanity. For when the signal reached Earth, it was not met with disdain, it was met with grim silence. In command halls on Earth and Mars, officers leaned forward over glowing maps of the rim. Their fleets were young, their reach limited, but the words struck something deep, something old in the human spirit. The Illyrians had begged all the galaxy for help. Everyone had turned their backs. Everyone except the one people the Council had written off as too fragile, too young, too unready. The message played again, echoing through the Unified Defense Forces chambers, and humanity listened. Chapter 5, Doors Closed. The Illyrian capital was shrouded in panic. Cities glowed under emergency beacons, civilians packed transports that had nowhere safe to flee, and their council of elders stood hollow-eyed as reports streamed in from the frontier. Colony after colony had gone silent. The great plea for help had been sent, and replies had trickled back like poisoned rain. Silence, rejection, indifference. The Valorians declared neutrality, the Supremus turned inward, and the Council, those self-proclaimed gods, pronounced them not ready. Despair was settling into their bones when a faint chime echoed in the chamber. Another transmission. The Illyrians rushed to the console, their obsidian eyes wide with hope. The message was only 2 words: hold tight. The chamber fell silent. Elder Elir, their leader, blinked rapidly, unable to process the bluntness. That is all? Yes, replied his aide, voice trembling. The signal traces back to the humans. Murmurs broke out. The humans? The backwater species? The ones the Council deemed too young, too reckless, too fragile? The Illyrians had not even sent their plea toward them, assuming they would be of no use. Yet here was an answer, as curt as it was confounding. Elder Elir pressed the translation sphere closer. What does it mean, hold tight? No one in the chamber could say. The human response on Earth. There had been no debate. In the underground command hall beneath the United Defense Headquarters, Admiral Sheridan Grant's voice carried over the assembled officers. The Illyrians called for help. No one answered. That leaves us. He pointed to the fleet markers glowing on the holomap. Every ship capable of making the jump goes. Carriers, corvettes, destroyers. They'll spearhead into the rim and meet the Thrillians head-on. And the rest of the fleet? General Rojas asked, her arms folded. Remain here, defensive posture. If this is a trap, we hold Sol no matter the cost. No arguments followed. Humanity had learned long ago that hesitation killed. Orders went out, engines roared to life in shipyards above Mars, thrusters flared on Titan's carriers, and the spearhead fleet began to marshal. Admiral Grant recorded the transmission himself. 2 words, a promise, stripped of ornament or hesitation. Hold tight, the Illyrian dilemma. But to the Illyrians, it was no comfort. Their navigators calculated human travel time. Even with faster-than-light engines, their crude jump drives would take nearly 3 months to cross the void. 3 months of holding out against a war machine that could crush them in weeks. Elder Ayler clenched trembling fingers against the council table. 3 months. We cannot last 3 months unless we sacrifice the innocent. If we abandon the outlying colonies, if we strip our people of protection, perhaps we could last until they arrive. And if we do not, whispered another elder, then we all burn before the humans reach us. The chamber filled with silence. The Illyrians had begged across the stars, and only the unlikeliest of allies had answered, but their salvation was too far away. To hold meant abandoning their children. To flee meant surrender. Confusion turned to fear, and fear into despair. For now, all they had was 2 words, echoing through their minds like a fragile shield against the dark. Hold tight. The Illyrian council chamber was heavy with silence. Their navigators had calculated the cold truth. 3 months until the humans could arrive. Too long, far too long. The Thorillian fleets were already moving on their outlying colonies. Elder Alir lowered his head. We asked for salvation. We were given hope too late. Then the alarms began to sing. Not Thorillian signatures, not the sharp, jagged energy of conqueror ships. Something new. Chapter 6. Hold tight. The alarms wailed across the Illyrian capital. At first, the council feared it was the Thorillians, that the enemy had arrived early. But the readings were different. Dozens of energy signatures, angular vessels emerging from folds in space like teeth tearing through the void. Not Thorillians. Something new. The Illyrians watched their tactical displays in stunned silence. Ships of steel and fire, bristling with cannons and missile racks, hung in formation above their world. Ugly, crude, built for nothing but survival. The humans had arrived. The transmission. This is Admiral Sheridan Grant, United Defense Force. Illyrian Command, do you copy? Elder Eller scrambled for the translation sphere. His hands shook as the chamber filled with the human's rough voice. We copy, Admiral. But how? We calculated 3 months. On the feed, the human officer's mouth curved into something like a smile. Would have been here sooner, but we had to resupply and, well, limit volunteers for the mission. That took us 4 hours. The council erupted in whispers. Volunteers? Ayler asked, voice trembling. Grant leaned closer. Every crew in Saul wanted to jump. Everyone. But we can't strip our defenses completely, so we drew lots. What you've got here are the ones who won. The Illyrians stared, unable to comprehend a people so eager to fight for strangers. For the first time in their history, the Illyrians had allies who did not ask for tribute, or servitude, or conditions. They had warriors who had come because they had asked. The council had turned its back. The galaxy had abandoned them. But humanity had arrived in 6 hours, and the void would never be the same. Chapter 7. The Shock of Allies. The Illyrian capital's skies shimmered with unfamiliar shadows. Human ships, harsh, angular, built for war, hung in orbit like predators circling their prey. The Illyrians had never seen anything so crude, so blunt, so purposeful. Their own ships were slender, graceful spines of silver that flowed through the void like water. The Thorillian armadas, though brutal, carried an alien symmetry of honor and ceremony. But these human ships looked like weapons first, vessels second. First contact in flesh. A shuttle broke from the largest carrier, cutting through the atmosphere like a spear of fire. It descended toward the Illyrian capital, escorted by 2 smaller craft. The landing shook the council plaza as retro thrusters thundered, scorching the white stone. Illyrian elders, tall and slender, their robes flowing with pale silks, stood in cautious formation. Behind them, crowds pressed into the plaza, whispers echoing like wind through glass. The ramp hissed open. Out stepped Admiral Sheridan Grant, flanked by officers in heavy exosuits. Their boots struck the marble with a sound like hammers. Their armor bore no decoration but function, their visors glowing faint blue. Weapons were strapped across their backs, blunt instruments of steel and firepower. The Illyrians had seen warriors before, but never like this. One of the elders whispered to another, "They carry death as though it were breath." The meeting elder Eller stepped forward, bowing slightly. His voice was cautious, yet reverent. You crossed the void in 6 hours. You defied time itself, and you come armed as if for judgment. Grant's expression was unreadable, carved from years of command. He inclined his head politely, but without subservience. We come armed, he said, because we came to fight. That's what you asked for, isn't it? The council shifted uneasily at his bluntness. Illyrian culture prized delicacy, words wrapped in meaning and ceremony. Humanity's plain, raw speech struck like a hammer through silk. Alir pressed on. You do not ask for tribute? You do not demand loyalty? Then why risk yourselves for us? Grant glanced back at his officers, then back at the Illyrian leader. Because you asked. That's it. Nothing more complicated than that. The Illyrians murmured among themselves, their obsidian eyes wide. No empire, no council, no power in the galaxy gave aid without conditions. Yet here stood humanity, scarred, blunt, unpolished, offering protection because a plea had been heard. Culture clash later, within the joint command hall, the differences became starker. The Illyrians displayed their defense grids in sweeping arcs of color and light. Their planning was cautious, built around endurance, retreat corridors, and civilian shelters. The humans countered with hard, jagged holograms of Thrillian fleets, marked with red strike points. Admiral Grant spoke in clipped tones. Hit them here, break their comms, sabotage fuel depots here and here. They'll fold when their doctrine collapses. Elder tacticians stared, aghast. You mean to strike at their supply lines? To ambush them in asteroid fields? That is dishonorable. A UDF Marine officer, grinning through his scarred cheek, cut in. Honor doesn't win wars. Ammunition does. The chamber fell into stunned silence at the sheer audacity. The Illyrians exchanged anxious glances, unsure whether to be horrified or grateful. But one elder whispered what none dared speak aloud. Perhaps this is what survival looks like. The first spark of understanding. As the session ended, Elder Eller lingered by Admiral Grant. His voice was low, almost hesitant. We do not understand you. Not yet. Your bluntness, your ruthlessness, it frightens us. But perhaps that is what frightens the Thrillians too. Grant looked at him for a long moment, then replied, Good, then we're doing our job. The Illyrians had expected saviors cloaked in elegance and light. Instead, they had found humanity, scarred, uncompromising, and dangerous, and for the first time, they began to believe they might actually survive. Chapter 8. The First Silence. The void beyond the Illyrian system was littered with debris, shattered stations, burnt husks of scout craft, and the glowing trails of Thrillian patrols cutting ever closer. The unified defense force did not wait for them to arrive. They went hunting. The plan. In the Joint War Council, Admiral Sheridan Grant laid out the strike with harsh clarity. Thrillian patrol fleet, 12 warships. They're running supply corridors for the main push. If we break them here, the advance slows. Elder Ayler tilted his head, his black eyes unreadable. But this is not a defensive engagement. You intend to ambush them? Grant didn't blink. That's right. You want to survive? You don't wait to be hit. You hit first. Hard. The Illyrians murmured uneasily, but none objected. They had seen enough of humanity's conviction to know resistance was pointless. The ambush. The Thrillian patrol fleet slipped into the sector like predators. 12 sharp-hulled destroyers, bristling with weapons. Their formation was textbook. Tight, efficient, a wall of firepower. Hidden among the shadows of a fractured asteroid belt, the UDF and Illyrian ships waited. Targets locked, came the voice of Lieutenant Rios aboard the UDF destroyer Hastings. His knuckles were white on the firing controls. Ready on your command, Admiral. Grant's voice was steady. All ships, fire. Railguns screamed. Missiles streaked like comets. The first volley ripped through the Thrillian formation before they could react. 2 destroyers erupted in fire, hulls venting molten metal into the void. The trap was sprung. The Thrillians responded with fury. Their formation broke, ships twisting to return fire with plasma lances that carved through the asteroid field. Human corvettes exploded one by one, their crude armor no match for concentrated volleys. Illyrian ships built for endurance moved in disciplined arcs, shields absorbing punishing strikes. They lost few, their technology able to withstand the Thrillian onslaught longer than expected. But the UDF paid in blood. The carrier Gettysburg was gutted by plasma fire, its hull splitting open as hundreds of crew were lost to the void. Corvettes Chosin and Hugh City disintegrated under overlapping barrages. Every officer in Grant's command net could hear the screams, the static, the silence that followed. Yet the humans pressed forward. Boarding pods slammed into Thrillian hulls. Marines in exosuits stormed corridors in brutal hand-to-hand combat, cutting down warriors with shotguns, blades, and fire. The Thrillians, bound to duels and honor, were unprepared for the sheer savagery of human close-quarters tactics. Within an hour, the Thrillian patrol was broken. Their comms fell silent. The last destroyer exploded in a plume of flame, scattering shards across the asteroid field. The battlefield was quiet except for the hiss of leaking hulls and the static of broken comms. UDF losses, nearly half the fleet, hundreds dead. Thousands more wounded or stranded on crippled ships. Illyrian losses, 3 ships, damage severe but survivable. In the Illyrian command hall, silence reigned as the casualty reports poured in. Elders whispered in shock at the human sacrifice. Elder Eller's voice broke it at last. Why fight so recklessly? You bleed more than us. You lose more than us. Why throw lives away? Admiral Grant's face was grim, weary, but unyielding. Because that's how you win. You don't measure victory in lives spared. You measure it in enemies silenced, and every one of our losses today will teach us how to fight them better tomorrow. He leaned forward, eyes burning. We learn fast, faster than they do, faster than anyone thinks possible. The Illyrians stared at him, shaken by the brutality, the cost, and the terrifying conviction. For the first time, they understood what humanity truly brought to this war. Not elegance, not endurance, relentless adaptation. Chapter 9, Lessons in Blood. The wreckage of the Thrillian patrol fleet still drifted among the shattered asteroids, glowing faintly in the cold light of distant suns. Human salvage crews worked tirelessly, pulling corpses, data cores, and scrap into cargo bays. Illyrian ships glided silently nearby, their hulls scorched but intact, their crews solemn as they watched. The victory was theirs, but at a staggering cost. The Council of War. In the Illyrian capital, human officers and Illyrian elders sat together in the joint command hall. The chamber was lined with luminous crystal, its beauty marred by the holographic projections of destruction. Wrecked UDF carriers, broken Illyrian cruisers, and the silent tally of lives lost. Elder Eller's long fingers traced the casualty figures as though the numbers themselves wounded him. You lost. So many, yet we, fewer. Admiral Sheridan Grant's voice was steady but heavy. Your shields can hold. Ours can't. But our guns bite deeper than yours. You survive the blows we can't. We hit harder than you can. Together, we bleed less. Ayler's eyes glimmered with doubt. You suggest, sharing, that our defenses and your weapons become one? Grant nodded once. That's the way forward. You give us shielding tech, we give you weapon schematics. You'll learn how to strike harder. We'll learn how to stand longer. The Thrillians won't know what hit them. The chamber murmured with unease. To the Illyrians, knowledge was sacred. To share it was unthinkable. But humanity had no hesitation. A clash of philosophy. One elder rose, her voice strained. Your people fight with reckless abandon. You throw lives away like sparks into the wind. To give you our shields would not temper your fury. It would only embolden it. General Rojas, standing at Grant's side, leaned forward. You're wrong. Shields won't embolden us. They'll keep us alive long enough to adapt. Every battle teaches us something new. Give us time to learn, and we'll break the Thrillians apart, piece by piece. The elder's gaze hardened. And what do we gain from this bargain? To kill more efficiently? Grant's reply was blunt. To survive. That's the only metric that matters. You asked us to help you. This is how we both live through it. The agreement silence hung in the chamber until Elder Eller finally bowed his head. Then let it be so. We will share our shielding matrices, and in return, we will learn the art of your weapons. We will learn to strike. The pact was sealed. Data cores were exchanged, scientists and engineers from both sides crossing into each other's ships. The Illyrians' shimmering shields began to merge with the raw, vicious firepower of human railguns and missiles. The human lesson later, as the council adjourned, an Illyrian aide approached Admiral Grant. Her voice was quiet, curious. Admiral, how have your people endured with such fragile shields, such reckless strategies? Grant regarded her for a long moment before answering. Because we learn. Every mistake, every scar, every loss. We carry them forward. We don't make the same mistake twice. That's why Earth is still here. That's why we'll win. The aide bowed slightly, her expression unreadable. For the Illyrians, survival had always meant avoiding danger. For the humans, survival had meant enduring it, learning from it, and using it to grow stronger. It was a lesson the galaxy had yet to understand, but the Thrillians would, soon. Chapter 10: The Weight of Sacrifice. The War Council chamber was quiet after the pact was struck. Human engineers were already transmitting schematics of their weapons, while Illyrian scientists prepared shielding data in return. Yet unease lingered in the air. Elder Ellier finally voiced what all his people were thinking. Admiral Grant, your ships burn faster than ours. Your people fight harder than we have ever seen. But I cannot understand, how do you endure such losses without despair? Why do your warriors rush into death so willingly? Grant's face was lined, weathered by years of command. His gaze swept across the council chamber, pausing on the holograms of fallen UDF ships. His voice, when it came, was low and steady. No one wants to die, he said. Not my soldiers, not me. We fight because we want to live, same as you. He stepped closer, the weight of his presence pressing into the chamber. But if a soldier falls, if they give their life so that the person next to them can live, so that their families back home can see another sunrise, then that's the best life a warrior can live. That's not waste, that's not despair, that's honor. The Illyrians shifted uncomfortably, their obsidian eyes reflecting the humans' blunt conviction. To them, life was sacred above all, endurance the greatest virtue. The idea of sacrifice as the highest form of living was alien, terrifying. General Rojas added softly, "Every loss teaches us something. Every fallen comrade makes the survivors fight harder, smarter. That's how humanity has survived every near extinction we've faced. We carry the dead with us, and we make sure their sacrifice means something." Elder Ellier bowed his head slowly, humbled. "Perhaps it is why you came when no others would. You live not only for yourselves, but for each other." Grant did not answer. He only looked out the window, where the battered human fleet drifted in orbit, scarred but unbroken. The council reacts far away in the spire of eternity. The council of ancients gathered once more. Their cloaked probes had recorded everything: the ambush, the staggering UDF losses, the exchange of technology, and most disturbing of all, the humans' philosophy of sacrifice. Elder Valor, the obsidian giant, rumbled in disbelief. "They fight like rabid beasts. They throw themselves into death and call it victory." "They adapt," hissed Elder Ithran, flame flickering in his skeletal form. "Too quickly. Already they merge Illyrian shields with their crude ships. Already their doctrine shifts. If they are not contained, they will grow beyond control." Elder Sereth, shrouded in silver veils, sneered. "And what then? They are still fragile, a flickering flame. The Thrillians will crush them soon enough. This is noise, nothing more." But Corin, etched with constellations, spoke with quiet dread. "No, this is not noise. This is a storm building on the rim. The Thrillians bleed, and yet the humans grow sharper with every cut. You call them fragile, but I see scars, and scars are not weakness." The High Arbiter's starlight form dimmed as it whispered, "If this continues, they will become something even we cannot control." For the first time in countless cycles, the Council of Ancients felt the stirrings of unease. The silence of the Thrillian fleets was spreading, and humanity was the reason. Chapter 11: Shadows of Doubt. The council chamber glowed with shifting violet light as the ancients debated. Cloaked probes had relayed every detail of the battle, the human ambush, their staggering losses, and their terrifying ability to learn and adapt in days where others required centuries. But what disturbed them most was not the victory, it was the time. Elder Valor's stone voice rumbled across the chamber. 6 hours. 6. By all calculations, they should have needed months to cross the void, yet they arrived in hours. "They lied," Sereth hissed, her silver veils rippling. "No backwater species could master void transit so quickly." "They did not lie," Corin countered, constellations burning faintly across his skeletal frame. "They spoke openly. Their drives are crude, dangerous. They risk instability for speed. And yet, it works. What else do they possess that we have not foreseen?" Ithren's flaming form crackled with unease. "They arrived faster than even our fleets could muster. If such a force can project itself at will across the rim, then they are not merely a nuisance, they are a threat to the balance we have maintained. The High Arbiter's starlight dimmed, its many voices speaking as one. Monitor them closer, learn their methods. If necessary, we shall decide their fate. But understand this, humanity must not be allowed to rise unchecked. If they do, they will not kneel, they will not obey, they will not stop. The Council's judgment was silence, heavy with fear. The alliance grows. On the Illyrian capital, the joint command had shifted from desperation to determination. Human engineers worked side by side with Illyrian scientists, welding together crude Earth reactors with elegant crystalline shield matrices. Shipyards glowed day and night, sparks flying as hybrid vessels took shape. It was in this atmosphere of feverish preparation that Admiral Grant requested a private audience with Elder Ayler. The Elder's black eyes regarded him warily. "You have already asked much of us, Admiral. What more is required?" Grant's tone was direct, but not demanding. "Permission to transmit your shield schematics to Sol. My people need time to integrate this tech into our main fleets. We can't fight this war with a handful of ships. We need the 1st, 3rd, and 4th fleets fully outfitted and ready." The chamber fell silent. Illyrian aides shifted uncomfortably, whispering in disbelief. Share their most sacred defenses, not just with the humans present, but with their entire species? It was unthinkable. Elder Eller leaned forward slowly. "You ask us to give away our only advantage, to trust that you will not turn it against us." Grant's expression was steady, almost weary. "You trusted us when you called for help. We trusted you when we walked into this war knowing it might kill us all. That's how alliances work. You give, you share, and you survive together. Or you die apart." For a long moment, the Elder studied him. Finally, he bowed his head. "Then so be it. We give permission. Let your fleets prepare." The waiting storm transmissions surged across the void, carrying Illyrian shielding algorithms back to Sol. On Earth, engineers and scientists tore into the data, already rewriting ship designs, refitting reactors, and strengthening fleets that had been waiting for the call. The 1st fleet, humanity's shield. The 3rd fleet, humanity's hammer. The 4th fleet, humanity's spear. Each was already mustering in Sol space, ready to burn toward the rim. On the Illyrian capital, Elder Ayler stood with Admiral Grant, gazing at the stars where Thurilian fleets gathered like storm clouds. "You are certain your main force will come," Ayler said softly. Grant nodded. "They're already on the move, and when they get here," his eyes hardened. "The Thurilians will learn what it means to fight humanity at full strength." Chapter 12. The Fear of Gods. The Spire of Eternity was restless. Violet mist rolled heavier than usual, the crystalline walls humming as if resonating with the unease of their occupants. For the first time in millennia, the Council of Ancients were not united. The debate. Elder Valor's stone form loomed over the circle, his voice rumbling like an avalanche. "They crossed the void in 6 hours. 6. Do you understand what this means? If they can project fleets at will, even the core is no longer secure." Sereth, veils of silver rippling like liquid mercury, dismissed him with a curl of her hand. "Speculation. Their drives are unstable, crude. They burn fuel and risk annihilation with each transit. A gamble, nothing more." "Yet it worked," Ithran hissed, flames licking at the edges of his skeletal form. "And it will work again. Even failure favors them. They learn from it. Did you not see how they adapted Illyrian shields in days? They wield knowledge like weapons." Corin, etched in constellations, spoke quietly, his tone more unsettling than any roar. "They arrive faster than us. They adapt faster than us. They fight as if death is a companion, not an end. Tell me, my peers, what else do they possess that we cannot see? How deep does their hunger run?" The chamber fell into silence. The question none dared to voice lingered. Had they underestimated humans so completely that even their worst fears were already outdated? The Arbiter speaks. The High Arbiter's form shimmered, starlight pulsing faintly as if each thought carried the weight of entire galaxies. Its 1,000-voiced chorus rolled through the chamber. "Humanity is anomaly. A backwater race, unshaped by us, scarred by endless self-inflicted war. Their speed of advancement defies balance. Their willingness to bleed defies reason. If they continue unchecked, they will not become servants. They will not become clients. They will become rivals. A ripple of unease coursed through the elders. Rivals. No one had spoken such a word in ages. The council ruled. It did not rival. Valor struck the table with a fist of stone. Then destroy them now, before their main fleets arrive, before they infect others with their defiance. But Corin shook his head. Strike too soon, and we reveal our hand. The Thorillians still bleed for us, still keep the rim in chaos. Better they exhaust themselves against the humans first. Then we decide. Or, Sereth purred, we let the Thorillians fall. One more empire erased by time, and once humanity grows arrogant, we sweep down upon them as gods. They will kneel or they will burn. The flames of Ithran flickered violently. And if they do neither? The chamber darkened as the Arbiter's voice echoed one last time. Then the galaxy will tremble with the sound of gods learning fear. The watching eyes outside the chamber, hidden from human sight, cloaked probes multiplied. They tracked every UDF transmission, every hybrid ship, every line of code sent back toward Saul. They whispered across the void to their masters. The council would watch. The council would wait. And in the stillness of the spire of eternity, the ancients wondered if they were watching the birth of their greatest mistake. Chapter 13. Preparing the Spear. The void above the Illyrian capital was alive with sparks. Human and Illyrian ships floated side by side in orbit, swarmed by shuttles and repair drones. Human welders, faces hidden behind plasma masks, grafted crystalline shield emitters onto steel hulls. Illyrian technicians studied crude railgun barrels with fascination, their slender hands tracing the brutal simplicity of human design. The alliance was no longer theoretical. It was becoming real. In the Joint Command Hall, Admiral Sheridan Grant stood before a holomap of the rim. Beside him, Elder Ellir and his council watched nervously as the display flickered with Thorillian fleet movements. Red markers multiplied by the day, pressing inward. "They're massing here," Grant said, gesturing to a cluster of systems along the frontier. "Not scouts, not patrols, this is a full push. They mean to break you before reinforcements can arrive." Elder Aylir's long fingers tightened on the edge of the table. "And your reinforcements, how soon?" "Soon," Grant answered. "We've already transmitted your shielding schematics. By the time the Thorillians make their main strike, Earth's 1st, 3rd, and 4th fleets will be en route, outfitted, ready." The council chamber stirred. The Illyrians exchanged uneasy whispers. The sheer scale of the numbers, 3 full fleets, was beyond anything they had expected from a species the council dismissed as too young. "You mean," Elder Aylir's voice faltered, "this is not your main strength?" Grant met his gaze. "No, this is just the vanguard, the shock of truth." For a moment, silence weighed heavier than the void outside. The Illyrians had thought the humans reckless, desperate, bleeding themselves dry to protect strangers. Yet now, they learned the terrible truth. The fleet that had arrived in 6 hours was not Earth's hammer, nor its shield, nor its spear. It was only the opening hand. Elder Aylir's voice was almost a whisper. "Then, what manner of people are you, Admiral, to send so much, so quickly, for those you do not even know?" Grant's eyes hardened. "The kind of people who don't wait until it's too late. The kind who've already lived with extinction breathing down their necks. And the kind who'd rather bleed for others now than bleed alone later." The preparation orders rippled outward. Illyrian defense ships refitted with human missile racks, human destroyers armored with crystalline shielding, shared crews trained side by side, translators patching together languages in real time. In orbital hangars, Marines sparred with Illyrian security troops. The humans fought with brutal efficiency, striking to disable and kill, while the Illyrians hesitated, trained only to repel. By the end of the drills, the Illyrians were bleeding, bruised, and shaken, but something in them began to harden. Elder Aylir watched one such drill with troubled eyes. His aide whispered, "They change us, Elder. Every moment they change us." "Yes," Aylir murmured, his gaze fixed on the humans. "But perhaps that is the only way we will endure." The waiting storm above them, the stars shimmered with hostile fire. The Thorillians were coming. Already, outposts at the frontier were falling silent, consumed by the Empire's wrath. But this time, when the storm reached the Illyrians, it would not find dreamers alone. It would find dreamers standing beside warriors, and warriors who were learning faster than any foe had ever imagined. And soon, behind them, the full weight of Earth's 1st, 3rd, and 4th fleets. Chapter 14. the fleets of Sol. The Sol system burned with industry. Above Earth, the Terran orbital shipyards thundered with constant activity. Massive spines of steel stretched across orbit, glowing with weld arcs and reactor heat. Carriers the size of cities were berthed in their cradles, destroyers slid from dry docks into waiting escorts, and endless convoys ferried ammunition, food, and fuel to stockpile for war. Humanity had heard the Illyrian plea, and Earth was answering. The mustering. In the shadow of Mars, the first fleet gathered. Sleek compared to the early vanguard, its ships were lined with crystalline emitters, newly integrated Illyrian shielding woven into their hulls. Destroyers ran shield trials while cruisers carried dual cores, one human, one alien, to balance the load. Railgun batteries gleamed like rows of sharpened teeth. The Third Fleet massed above Titan, its carriers swarmed by strike craft. Squadrons of fighters, bombers, and gunships were refitted with hybrid systems, human engines, Illyrian shielding, jury-rigged weapon mounts that bristled with every conceivable armament. Their pilots, young and untested, carried names of Earth's long-dead battlefields painted on their fuselages: Fallujah, Ypres, Agincourt, Okinawa. And in the asteroid belt, among the hidden foundries carved into rock, the Fourth Fleet emerged. This was humanity's spear. Experimental vessels bristling with overclocked drives and weapons so new their blueprints were still warm. They would strike first, strike deep, and never allow the Thrillians to breathe. The departure on Earth itself, billions watched as the fleets formed. Cities gathered around viewports and broadcast towers, staring at the glowing armadas that represented their future. Children pointed at carriers streaking into the void. Veterans saluted. From the command deck of the UDF flagship Resolute, High Admiral Elena Varga's voice carried across every channel. Humanity has known the edge of extinction since its dawn, but we did not fall. We endured. Now the Illyrians call for aid, and the galaxy doubts us. They think us weak. They think us fragile. Her words thundered through every ship, every crew, every home still tethered to Earth's gravity. They are wrong. We will not falter. We will not kneel. The Thrillians will learn the silence of defeat, and the Council will learn that humanity does not bow. Humanity endures. Humanity fights. Humanity rises. A cheer roared through the fleets, a sound carried through every comnet like a rolling tide. Then the order came. All fleets, prepare to jump. The flames of Sol, the void twisted. Drives screamed as the fabric of space folded and tore. One by one, ships vanished into streaks of light, leaving Sol behind. The First, Third, and Fourth Fleets departed as the defenders of humanity, but they left something greater behind, the knowledge that Earth itself no longer stood alone. Humanity was stepping into the galaxy not as prey, not as pawns, but as predators in their own right. The Council had dismissed them. The Thrillians had underestimated them. Now the fleets of Sol were coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. Chapter 15, Eyes of the Gods. The spire of eternity was alive with whispers. The council chamber glowed brighter than usual, the crystalline walls humming with the energy of countless cloaked probes transmitting from Sol. Images shimmered above the table, grainy, imperfect, but undeniable. Armadas of human ships, thousands strong, surging from the Terran shipyards. Carriers bristling with strike craft, destroyers armored with alien shielding, experimental vessels slipping into formation with engines burning hotter than physics should allow. The Council of Ancients watched in silence. The report Elder Valor's stone body cracked audibly as he shifted forward. This is not a backwater militia. This is war on a scale the Rim has never known. Elder Seraith's silver veil quivered as she hissed. They were not supposed to rise so quickly. Their world nearly destroyed itself. They were meant to fracture, to fade, to be forgotten. But they did not, Ithrin's flaming voice rasped, its skeletal frame flickering. They clawed back from the brink, and now they spread their scars across the stars. They embrace sacrifice as strength. Look at them, feeding on death, growing from it. Corin's constellation-etched frame pulsed faintly, quiet but firm. They have something we have long forgotten, desperation. They fight as though every battle is their last, and that makes them stronger than any empire we have shaped. The Fear the High Arbiter's starlight form dimmed, shadows stretching across the chamber. Its chorus of voices was softer now, tinged with unease. 3 fleets, coordinated, hybridized with alien technology, moving at a pace even we cannot match. If they reach the rim in time, the Thorelian Empire will not stand. And if the Thorelians fall, Seraith snapped, the rim unites behind humanity. They become not anomaly but rallying point. Do you not see? They infect others with their defiance. Elder Valor struck the table with a hand of stone, cracks spidering outward through the crystal. Then we must act. No more waiting. Humanity must be contained, broken, erased, before their fleets shatter the balance we have preserved. The divide. But Corrin shook his head slowly. Strike now, and you reveal yourselves. The galaxy will see gods descend, not to protect, but to slaughter. Do you not remember what happened the last time we revealed our hand? The ruins still smolder in forgotten systems. Better the Thorelians bleed first. Let humanity pay in flesh, then we strike the survivor. The chamber crackled with discord. Half the elders whispered for immediate destruction, the other half for patience and shadow. For the first time in eons, the council was divided. The Arbiter's judgment. The High Arbiter's light flickered, pulsing like a dying star. Its chorus rolled low and slow, echoing across the chamber. Watch them, measure them, but do not move yet. The Thorelian counteroffensive has already begun. Let the humans and their allies bleed. Let them think themselves victorious. And when they have grown arrogant, the Arbiter's glow sharpened into a spear of light. We will remind them what gods are. The probes dimmed, fading into silence as they continued to stalk the human fleets. The council had always ruled by control, by patience, by certainty. But now, for the first time in ages, they were ruled by fear. Chapter 16, The Wrath of Thorel. The war hall of the Thorelian Empire pulsed with firelight. Massive braziers roared along the edges of the obsidian chamber, their flames reflected in the polished floor. War banners hung heavy from the vaulted ceilings, each painted with the blood-red sigil of Thorel, a jagged blade splitting a star. At the head of the chamber sat Emperor Karzul, his scarred armor dented from 100 campaigns. His yellow eyes burned like twin suns as his generals knelt before him, their faces marked with ritual scars. The silence was broken by the thud of a massive warhammer as General Thakor rose. The report, "My Emperor," Thakor growled. "Our patrol fleet at the Illyrian frontier has gone silent. 12 destroyers erased. Reports claim the humans and the Dreamers fought together. Impossible though it seems, they struck first, an ambush." The hall filled with growls and curses. Another general snarled, "The Illyrians are cowards. They could not strike at us without aid. These humans must be their shield." "Not a shield," Thakor spat. "A weapon, crude but deadly." The debate. The Emperor leaned forward on his throne, claws tapping the armrest. "Humans," he rumbled. "The backwater species. We scouted them once. Fragile, divided, near extinction by their own hands." "They are not fragile now," Thakor replied, voice sharp. "They learn too quickly. They fight without honor. They swarm like vermin and sacrifice as though death were nothing." One general barked in defiance. "Let them come. We are Thorel, warriors born. No scavenger race can match our fleets." But murmurs of unease spread through the chamber. Too many systems had fallen silent. Too many patrols had vanished. The Emperor's fury Karzul slammed a clawed fist against his throne, the sound like a thunderclap. The generals froze. "Do you tremble at the name of humans?" he roared. "Are we Thorel or are we prey?" The generals struck their fists to their chests in unison. "We are Thorel." "Then we will show them," Karzul growled. "Gather the war fleets. Not patrols, not scraps, our full strength. We will crush this alliance before it grows. We will burn the Illyrians' world to ash, and we will mount the heads of humans on our banners." The hall roared with approval, but beneath the thunder, unease lingered. The shadow of humanity. As the generals dispersed to rally their fleets, Thakor lingered at the edge of the hall. His eyes narrowed as he spoke quietly to another commander. "They are not like the others. Every foe we have faced, we broke. Every enemy we crushed, we erased. But these humans, they fight as though they have faced extinction 1,000 times and refused it each one. That kind of enemy does not vanish easily." The other commander sneered. "Then we will erase them harder." But Thakor's gaze remained distant, troubled, because somewhere deep in his warrior's heart, he knew the truth. The humans were not just another enemy. They were the storm that might finally silence Thorel. Chapter 17, Before the Storm. The stars above the Illyrian capital glittered with an unnatural tension. Patrols moved in constant arcs, defense grids shimmered with renewed strength, and hybrid ships bristled with both human weapons and Illyrian shielding. Yet for all their progress, the air in every command room, every barracks, every hangar was heavy. The Thrillians were coming. The command hall Admiral Sheridan Grant stood at the center of the Joint War Council, his arms folded as tactical markers flickered across the holomap. Red symbols, Thrillian fleets, multiplied with each passing hour, pushing deeper toward the Illyrian system. "They're massing here," Grant said, gesturing toward 3 converging clusters. "Multiple task forces, driving straight for your capital. They're not probing anymore. This is the hammer." Elder Ayler's obsidian eyes glimmered with unease. "And we are the anvil," Grant nodded. "Exactly. We hold them here. Buy time for the Sol fleets to arrive." The council chamber filled with whispers. Some Illyrians spoke of retreat, others of delay, but Grant's voice cut through them like steel. "Running isn't survival. Standing is. If we bend now, they'll follow us across the stars. If we stand, we make them bleed, and the Sol fleets will finish the job." The preparation. In orbit, the Alliance fleet bristled with activity. Human ships, scarred from their first battle, now carried shimmering Illyrian shield emitters across their hulls. Illyrian cruisers had been retrofitted with human missile bays, their elegant lines scarred by brutal firepower. Illyrian crews trained with human marines in the hangar bays. The difference was stark. The Illyrians drilled for defense, forming walls and repelling attackers with shields and precision. The humans fought like storms. Close, brutal, every strike designed to kill. At the end of one session, an Illyrian guard captain dropped to the floor, gasping, bruised, and humiliated. A UDF sergeant extended a hand to pull him up. "You're too careful," the sergeant said, his face streaked with sweat. "Out there, careful gets you killed. Better to hit hard, hit fast, and adapt." The captain stared at him, then nodded slowly. Perhaps your chaos is its own kind of discipline. The weight of waiting." That night, in the silence of orbit, Admiral Grant stood on the observation deck of the flagship Hastings. Beyond the glass stretched a sea of stars, serene and indifferent. Somewhere in that darkness, the Thrillians were coming. General Amina Rojas joined him, her arms crossed. "Morale's holding," she reported. "But everyone knows this is going to hurt." Grant didn't look at her. "It always hurts. The trick is making sure it hurts them more." Rojas allowed herself a dry chuckle. "You make it sound simple." "It is simple," Grant replied. "Not easy, but simple." The oath. Back on the surface, Elder Eller addressed his people. His voice carried across the crystal plazas, echoing through the towers of light. "The Thrillians believe we are prey. They believe humans are fragile. They will come here to prove it. But we do not stand alone. We stand with warriors who bleed for strangers. And together, we will endure." The Illyrians, once explorers and dreamers, raised their voices in a cry that shook their world. For the first time, they believed they might not be swept aside by history. For the first time, they believed in survival through defiance. And above them, the Alliance fleet waited in the silence before the storm. Chapter 18. The first wave, the silence broke. At the edge of the Illyrian system, alarms flared. Long-range sensors rippled with hostile signatures. Small at first, a spearhead of fast destroyers and heavy cruisers, their drives burning hot. The Thrillians had arrived. The warning. On the Hastings Bridge, red light pulsed as officers scrambled over consoles. "Contacts confirmed," Lieutenant Navarro barked. "First wave, 8 destroyers, 4 cruisers, heavier than a patrol, but not the main fleet." Grant's eyes narrowed. "Testing the waters." General Rojas leaned over his shoulder. "If we break here, the main hammer will follow straight through." "Then we don't break," Grant said simply. "All ships, battle stations, shields live, weapons hot." The clash, the first Thrillian ships burst from the void like predators, their hulls painted in the jagged red of conquest. They advanced in tight formation, plasma lances warming to strike. The Alliance fleet moved to meet them. Human destroyers surged forward in vanguard lines, their new Illyrian shields shimmering faintly against the void. Behind them, Illyrian cruisers spread in graceful arcs, missile racks hissing as they armed with human munitions. The battle lit the dark. Railguns screamed, their slugs tearing through the void like thunderbolts. Missiles streaked, detonating against Thrillian shields. The enemy's return fire lanced across the field, smashing into human hulls with punishing force, but this time, shields held. The first human cheers broke through the comms. The losses, but the Thrillians were relentless. One cruiser, the Zathor's Fang, plowed straight through a screen of corvettes, plasma fire ripping apart the UDF frigate Hugh City. Another destroyer rammed the human corvette Stalingrad, detonating in a blaze that took both ships with it. Illyrian ships fared better, their shielding enduring the punishment, but their return fire was weak. Missiles sputtered, railguns overheated. Their hesitation in pressing the attack cost them momentum until human officers shouted across open comms, "Don't just defend, strike!" Reluctantly, the Illyrians advanced. For the first time, their ships fired not to repel, but to kill. The aftermath. After 2 hours, the first wave lay broken. Half the Thrillian ships burned, the others retreated into the void. The alliance had held, but victory had come at a cost. 3 human destroyers gone, 4 corvettes reduced to drifting wrecks, over 2,000 dead. In the command hall, silence followed the casualty reports. Illyrian elders bowed their heads in mourning, but Admiral Grant's face remained hard, carved from stone. "They'll be back," he said flatly. "This was the probe. The real blow is still coming." Elder Ehler's voice trembled. "And when it does?" Grant looked up at the holographic stars, where the next wave of Thrillian fleets already massed beyond the rim. "Then we show them this wasn't luck. We show them we've learned, and we bleed them dry until Saul arrives." Chapter 19. Steel and Silk. The first wave was over, but the scars lingered. The Alliance had held the line, yet the cost was heavy. Human destroyers lay in ruins, their crews gone to the void. Illyrian ships limped home, their elegant hulls cracked and scorched. Thousands were dead, and the fleet was bleeding. To keep fighting, crews had to be merged. The mixing of crews orders rippled through the Alliance. Surviving human engineers were assigned to Illyrian ships, while Illyrian navigators and shield specialists were embedded in human vessels. Marines bunked beside Illyrian guards, translators buzzing constantly, cultures colliding in every corridor. At first, it was chaos. Human compartments smelled of oil, sweat, and recycled coffee. Illyrian quarters glowed with crystal light and carried faint floral scents meant to soothe nerves. Where humans barked orders, the Illyrians layered their words with courtesy and ritual. And then there was the humor, dark laughter. On the UDF cruiser Gettysburg's Wrath, a squad of Marines was patching a corridor when an Illyrian guard captain overheard them laughing. "2 plasma bolts missed me by inches," one Marine chuckled, slamming a hand on the bulkhead. "Guess the universe still needs my ugly mug around," another Marine smirked. "Nah, man," Death took one look and said, "Not today, too damn ugly for the afterlife." The squad broke into laughter. The Illyrian captain stiffened, confused. His obsidian eyes narrowed. "You jest about death? About nearly falling?" One Marine looked up at him, grinning despite the grime smeared across his face. "Yeah, that's how we deal with it. Laugh in its face, keep moving forward. If you don't laugh, it'll eat you alive." The Illyrian tilted his head. "But does this not dishonor your fallen?" The Marine's grin faded into something harder. "No, it honors them. Jokes remind us we're still alive, that we've still got work to do, that their sacrifice bought us another day." The silence stretched, then the Illyrian gave a slow nod. He didn't laugh, but he understood. Explaining the subtext later, in a joint briefing, an Illyrian elder asked Admiral Grant about the humans' but unsettling humor. "Your warriors speak of their own deaths as though it is sport. They mock the void. Is this madness?" Grant's expression softened, a flicker of weariness showing through. "Not madness, coping. If we don't laugh, we break, and if we break, we die. Humor's our shield when the void gets too close." General Rojas added, "We make jokes about death because we know it's always with us. It's not defiance, it's survival. It keeps us sane long enough to keep fighting." The elders sat in silence, disturbed but thoughtful. For them, endurance had always meant silence, solemnity, and restraint. For humans, endurance meant scars, laughter, and fighting forward even when everything seemed lost. The Bond days later, in the barracks of a mixed crew, an Illyrian guard stumbled while repairing his armor. A Marine nearby snorted. "Don't worry, man. If you break it again, we'll just duct tape you to the wall and call you a decoration." The Illyrian blinked, startled, Then, to his own surprise, he chuckled. The Marine grinned. See, you're getting it. The fleet was no longer two peoples. It was becoming one, bound by necessity, tempered by loss, and stitched together with laughter and fire. And as the Thrillian hammer gathered in the dark, humanity and the Illyrians stood ready, not as strangers, but as brothers and sisters of war. Chapter 20. The Silence of Thoril. The void erupted in fire. The Thrillian counteroffensive arrived in force. Hundreds of ships pouring into the Illyrian system, crimson banners blazing, their formation tight and merciless. No probing, no hesitation. This was annihilation incarnate. On the Hastings, alarms screamed as Admiral Grant's officers rattled off numbers. Enemy fleet strength, 3 battle groups, closing fast. Estimate 200 ships. Elder Ayler's obsidian eyes darkened. This is their hammer. Grant's expression didn't waver. Then we hold long enough for the anvil to fall. The mistake. The Thrillians came in too hard, too fast. Their formations split as they surged toward different objectives. Some toward orbital defenses, others toward the Illyrian capital, others toward the battered remnants of the Alliance fleet. What they didn't see were the painted trails left behind. Human frigates and Illyrian scouts had spent days weaving through the system, tagging vital targets with coded beacons. Carrier groups, fuel depots, command cruisers. Invisible to Thrillian eyes, those marks now pulsed faintly in Allied channels. The Thrillians thought they were scattering the enemy. In truth, they were scattering themselves. The arrival, mark confirmed, a UDF officer reported. All targets painted. Grant nodded once. Transmit the signal and brace. The order went out. Across the Illyrian system, human and Illyrian ships shifted suddenly. No longer fighting to win, but fighting to hold. Shields flared, railguns barked, and missiles streaked, not to destroy, but to keep the Thrillians pinned in place. And then the void tore open. Behind the advancing Thrillian fleets, space folded, bent, and screamed. Thousands of drive signatures erupted as the Sol fleets arrived. The 1st, 3rd, and 4th fleets, humanity's hammer, shield, and spear. Carriers like cities. Destroyers bristling with hybrid weaponry. Experimental warships burning with reactor fire that lit the void. The Thrillians found themselves surrounded. The trap springs from the flagship Resolute. High Admiral Varga's voice thundered across every channel. Targets painted. Open fire. The void became light. Railgun slugs the size of tanks tore through Thrillian command ships. Missile storms obliterated fuel depots. Strike craft swarmed like hornets, gutting isolated destroyers. The painted targets lit up one by one, erased in precision strikes. The Thrillian hammer shattered against an anvil they hadn't seen coming. The silence on the Hastings, Elder Ayler stared at the holomap as Thrillian signatures winked out one after another. His voice was a whisper. They are undone. Grant's voice was quiet but firm. They made the mistake of thinking we were prey. They came without hesitation, and hesitation is what kills. For hours, the battle raged. But the outcome had been sealed the moment Sol's fleets arrived. The Thrillian Empire's war machine, centuries of arrogance and conquest, was broken in a single day. When the guns finally fell silent, the void was littered with the wreckage of red-marked ships, burning slowly into nothing. Epilogue. In the aftermath, the Alliance fleet drifted in exhausted silence. Human crews and Illyrian crews, once strangers, now clung to each other like brothers and sisters. The dead were mourned, the living hardened. The Thrillian Empire had fallen silent, one fleet at a time, and now its silence stretched across the rim. On the Illyrian capital, Elder Ayler looked to the stars and whispered, "They thought you fragile, they thought you unready, and yet you endure." From orbit, Admiral Grant gave the only reply that mattered. "We're just getting started."